Before we get started, I want to give huge shout outs to community partners Epilepsy Foundation of America and the Danny Did Foundation. Also, big thanks to Neurellis and SK Life Science. Thanks so much, y'all, for believing in this podcast and making conversations like this possible. Okay, here we go. Hey guys, welcome to What the F. This episode I'm so excited. We've been excited to do this for a long time. I am here with my colleague and friend, Mark Slater, who is a creative director and has done amazing work like the rebranding of the Danny Did Foundation, work for the Epilepsy Foundation of America, as well as a national plan for epilepsy. And Mark, your work is amazing, and I'm so excited you're here, even though we're not here to talk about this work. We're here to talk about our work.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, I am psyched to be here. As you know, something we have fought for a long time.
Yeah.
I think the first time we talked about this was about a year ago.
I think it was a year and a half, man. I think we've been on this for like a long time.
So the great news is it is happening. The Otherside Lounge debuting in September. New England Epilepsy Convention in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah, so it's coming up. I know it's summer, but we are like very close to September at the same time. And this is the Otherside Lounge is something Mark and I, as we mentioned, have been working on for a long time, but we want to tell everyone about it now that it's actually happening and like give you guys an idea of what it is and why it matters and why we want you there. So I feel like when you hear like Otherside Lounge, you're like, okay, cool. What is that though? And I think one of the most powerful pieces we have is that it's a space, a physical space for people with epilepsy made by people with epilepsy. And I think that just creates, pretty much awesomeness because people with epilepsy are fucking awesome. So
yeah, I think to give a little bit of backstory. So for me, at least, I think it all began the first time I spoke to someone about having epilepsy, or spoke to another person with epilepsy, was in my mid-40s. So after 30 years of having epilepsy, the first time in my entire life I spoke to a person with epilepsy. It was at this conference. It was an epilepsy-themed conference, but really the focus on sort of the clinical medical side. That was going to be a 5-minute conversation, and it turned into a 40-minute conversation. One of the most incredible and surreal moments of my life, and one that really kind of changed the trajectory. And because of that conversation, I'd say that really steered me in this direction of just getting more and more involved in the epilepsy space. And a big piece of that through our conversations, right, has been how do we create that moment for other people, and how do we create a vehicle for that?
Totally, because like the thing is, like I hear this story. I've experienced that story too myself. The first time I met someone who was also diagnosed as an adult with epilepsy, I just like started bawling immediately and just like didn't know I needed that connection. I didn't know I needed to talk to someone else who got it. And then I remember a few years later, I met someone else who had also just been diagnosed as an adult. And we met and she starts crying. And it's, and it's not like this unique, it's not a unique experience when it's like that first meaningful moment where it's, for you, like it was like something you hid and you didn't talk about, and for me, it was something I didn't know I needed to find someone with a similar experience.
Right. 100%. Like, what are we carrying? And you don't know until you have that conversation.
Totally.
And it's like, wow, that was a lot of weight. And I'm sure our loved ones and families are like, hey, you're so much better now. You're not carrying that quite as much.
Yeah. Well, and there's even studies that have shown the power of connection and what that does for epilepsy patients.
Yeah. A headline I love, and I should shout out Lee, the Epilepsy Foundation, is a headline we created for her was treat epilepsy with community. And apparently that is something that has resonated really well. But to your point, right, there is so much great data now around when one person with epilepsy connects with another person with epilepsy, you see clinical outcomes improve, right? You see, an increase in adherence to their medications. They're more engaged with their care. mental health improves, pressure rates decrease, suicidal ideation decreases. I mean, it's really transformative. There's actually a great quote up there. It's I think Eric Topol said, he said, patient engagement is the next breakthrough therapy.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, I love that. I did not know that. That is a good one. Yeah.
And it's one of those things that like you start thinking about it, it's so obvious, but we totally miss it in our system. Is just the notion that when people talk about this with each other and they know someone else with epilepsy, suddenly they're more engaged in their care at every step, right? Visiting their neurologist, taking their medications.
Yeah. Well, it's the support that like you need to kind of have in order to guide yourself through this mess that epilepsy kind of is, because it's all a guessing game. And then when you can talk to other people who are also playing the same guessing game, you know, like you said, it just builds better outcomes, you know, for your epilepsy. And also like it makes sense when you think about it, like that, like epilepsy is in the brain. So of course, if you're also helping your brain with like the serotonin and dopamine of meeting other people with epilepsy, then, you know, it makes sense that things improve. And that's why we want to create a space for people to connect with epilepsy. Um, you know, and I think like when we talk about the Otherside Lounge, which we definitely need to explain like what it is, like what's involved in it, um, and like where we see it going. So I think like let's break that down. Like what like our vision for the Otherside Lounge, which like Mark, because he's very talented, created a beautiful deck for it and describes it way cooler than I ever do.
Oh, pressure.
Yeah.
Pressure's on. But the idea is, just a gorgeously designed space, right? That is at the center of it is the lived experience. And I think that is sort of the essence of everything, because, you go to these conferences and you feel that people are talking about you or talking about your condition and they're talking for you. But they're not really talking to you and you're not talking at all. So if we create the space, the lived experience, we're talking to one another, we want to kind of create things around it that facilitate that, right? So it's going to be part museum, part gallery, part connection hub, but really just this gorgeously designed space that feels very, very mature and welcoming, and yet also has quadrants that's a little more like intimate for like conversation.
Yeah, totally. So it's not this like, very chill cafe, art gallery, but like place to connect vibe to it. And, we'll have a section also, just for like the decompression zone. So in case you just need to kind of like take a brain break. And then we'll have like spaces for connection, whether that's, talking to someone else, or we actually have like engagement concepts that I'm really excited about, like the vent wall, like what can we talk about with epilepsy that's frustrating us, and then also just like places to kind of do your own looking around and self-reflection and learning about epilepsy, because and Mark points this out a lot, we have stigma with epilepsy, and like learning where that stigma came from is super important. And so just kind of exploring this idea while celebrating the fact that we're all there and we have epilepsy, and yes, 100% sucks, but at the same time, it does provide us this thread to connect to other people. And that's what we just really want to hone in on and make people feel welcome and not judged, and like just like a big warm hug with mocktails involved.
I love it. I think the other thing that's going to work really well with this one is, because you have 3 days of education with, just on all these diverse topics around, lifestyle, mental health, exercise, dating, work, transportation, and epilepsy. After those sessions, people are going to want to talk about what they just learned or what the topic was. Like, this is the perfect spot for that, right? Then head over to the lounge, sit down, like, everyone's going to have like this shared language, I think, by the end of these 3 days. And this will be the spot where everyone kind of gets to reconnect and engage with each other. Yeah, I mean, I think this is totally a new way for people with epilepsy to just to engage with each other and engage with the larger community, right? I mean, those 60 epileptologists and researchers, they say nothing about us without us.
Yes, nothing about us without us. So I love that because that's really what the Otherside Lounge is bringing. It's saying, like, this is an epilepsy conference about people with epilepsy, but guess what? This is by us, this lounge, and this is curated for people with epilepsy.
Then within the space, we're going to have these different zones with different functions, networking moments, connection moments, and a ton of awesome art, kind of covering everything from, education, resources, the history of epilepsy, the ways we all think about it. And ideally in the future, right, we'll have even more content moments. I think that's a big piece of this, is that this is, it's designed to go on the road. So we can say, coming to a city near you.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's a great thing to point out, is that this is like the pilot. This is the first one, which we hope to be a staple of epilepsy conferences, to be more inclusive of people with epilepsy, and also like encourage that place and that point of connection for people. Because it's like you said earlier, like sometimes you're at a conference and it's like, oh, I'm being talked about or being talked to, but I'm not really talking to anyone. And this is like bridging that gap. And it would be so cool to go to an epilepsy conference knowing that there is this space for us, made by us.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea there. It's like, we are experts, right? Just in that we think epilepsy experts, we think epileptologists and research neurology. Yes, they're brilliant and they are experts, but experts in the lived experience. There's no one like a person with epilepsy who can speak about that, right? Who can, know everything from those, little unique moments of, I'm feeling a little weird. Did I forget to take my AEDs this morning?
Yeah.
To, the big things and, the post-ictal states and all of that.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I lost my train of thought. I was going to add on to that and I completely forgot where I was going.
Well, we always do a good job of reflecting the brain.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh shit! Sorry, I think I might have had a very small seizure.
Oh jeez.
I think no, like as the quick.
Okay.
Absence zone out.
Yeah. No, that's it's fine. We never talked about that because yours are so different from mine.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too about like epilepsy is like you and I have completely different types of seizures, right?
Yeah.
But we still can relate really hard about epilepsy together.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, that's those conversations, right? Just that I think there's so much, like, you don't realize how much shared currency you have with a person until you have these conversations. Like, I think I'm amazed by, like, you've been doing this a lot longer than me as far as, I'm like the hero of compartmentalization with epilepsy. Just didn't mention it for like 30 years. And then started talking about it a lot the last couple of years, but just the friendships I've made with other people with epilepsy have been, really, really incredible. And we get old and it's like, you don't really make friends anymore. That's nice. But so I think it's like, it's a piece there. It's kind of connection. Then there's also this piece of like, networking and education. And we should also talk about that, right? Just at the NECC, they're going to have, 3 solid days of education, really covering everything from
at the conference itself.
At the conference itself, yeah.
Yeah, which is all patient focused.
Yeah.
Like lifestyle, patient focused stuff, like, content, like it's an amazing concept. And I'm so excited that the New England Epilepsy Foundation is creating this conference because I think which by the way, it's in Boston. I'm flying out for it. I don't know, we'd love to get as many people there as possible, but again, this is something that we want to keep creating in other spaces too.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can book a ticket now, right. It's not so far. We still have time. September 4th, so months away. But yeah, I think what they've done, New England Epilepsy Foundation, is pretty impressive, right? Just in that there aren't really any conferences for people with epilepsy. Um,
Right.
just in that they're all, they tend to be for professionals, the neurologists, epileptologists, researchers in the space, but a conference just with all the education. And I think they're covering so many topics that you're familiar with. You talk about with guests, right? Everything from sort of like dating, lifestyle stuff to education, to workplace stuff, transportation,
Yeah.
just sort of
Nutrition, all like everything. Just kind of like let's package up all of the stuff that we have to worry about and need guidance on and put it in a 3-day conference, which is really amazing.
So I think the other thing that's great about the lounge is, starting to talk a little bit more about this idea of epilepsy wellness, which is, a lot of people think wellness is sort of this, soft side of medicine, but I think increasingly, like we're beginning to recognize, it's like wellness is really about, exercise, sleep, meditation, like all the things that are not, a drug.
Yeah. And the things that you have capacity to do, and like tailoring that wellness to you and a lot of times your epilepsy, because it kind of like determines everything you can do. So yeah, I'm really excited to just kind of integrate and explore other ideas, um beyond anti-seizure medications, of things that can like just help, like, and that just leads into like the connection piece too, because like connection is a part of wellness. And so I think that's just like I think the whole thing is to like, it just kind of, everyone be able to meet someone, connect, meet a few people, talk about our stuff, and then celebrating people with epilepsy.
Right, which is such a weird thing, right? Like just in that, there's a huge white space in this whole, just in that I think, people with epilepsy are typically used to seeing communications that are basically about fixing us.
Yeah.
Or on the other end, it's some awful depiction of epilepsy in like Hollywood or something. There's that, which is also not great. But then there's this other piece of it that really no one captures, is that people with epilepsy are amazing, like incredibly resilient, creative, empathetic, brilliant. And, you see all your guests, like Tony Coelho, right? No small achievement passing the American Disabilities Act, transforming like the political landscape in America. There's all these incredible people with epilepsy, and a chance to get together and talk about, what makes us who we are, what drives us.
Like every guest I have, I feel like has found some appreciation for what epilepsy has either taught them or changed their lifestyle or something. It always amazes me when I talk to people living with epilepsy, which is what I do for a living. But like when everyone says, you know what though, but I am lucky because of this. And there is a certain type, it amazes me, because it's like there's this perspective I think that people with epilepsy have, that like, again, we just need to share it with each other and talk to each other and like, and celebrate each other. Because like, to be honest, like if you take like a normal, healthy human, right? And if we are achieving like close to what a normally healthy human is, that's that's amazing. Like, because it's just harder for us, because we are literally like working with our brains to do things. And then some people use it to their advantage and they become so creative, and I just read an article about someone who said it was the reason he became a lawyer, because, he understood how to handle his emotions. And I was like, we are just very cool fucking people.
No, it's I was having coffee with someone the other day, and learn a little bit of that story, and they were an Olympian, and okay, so being an Olympian, obviously incredibly impressive, but just throughout the conversation, it was just, I think I commented a couple times, I was just like, I just love the way your brain works.
Yeah.
And that is such an awesome thing that there's not really any space for. At least they're in the typical, communications you'll see around epilepsy.
Yeah. So we're making that space.
Yes.
Yes, and we want to hear from you guys on what you want in that space too, because we have, as Mark explained, this very cool uh cafe, lounge, artsy, but like very fun vibe. And then, we've got mocktails all day, no big deal, So you can have your mocktails starting at 10 a.m., So
And
go
then
all day.
no one thinks the combination of epilepsy and day drinking, but we'll bring it home.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
This is our opportunity to shape epilepsy care. We're not shaping all of it, but this is a place to get our voice in there and begin informing it in terms of the way new therapies are developed, devices are developed, and that is just so exciting. So part cafe, part gallery, part connection hub, basically join hundreds of other people with epilepsy, over 60 of the world's leading epileptologists and neurologists, to connect, network, engage, celebrate, all focused on the lived experience, your experience with epilepsy, not anyone else's.
So yeah, definitely go. And if you're interested in coming, awesome. If you can't make the trip, don't worry. We are going to come to your city. We have to keep making this happen. But the link for to sign up for the New England Epilepsy Foundation Conference is in the episode description. Also, the link to learn about the Otherside Lounge is also there if you want to check out more information.
I think most people, once they hear it exists by people with epilepsy, for people with epilepsy, a place for us to celebrate the lived experience and connect.
Okay, guys, so that's the Otherside Lounge in September. We are so excited to see you there and meet you.
Yes, meet some awesome people and help us change the future of epilepsy.
Yeah, we'll see you there.